Hey, it's Jay, and welcome to my brand new series on my channel, MCU Reviewed. This is basically me talking about the new Marvel shows that are going to be airing on Disney Plus, as well as the newer movies that are going to be coming out for Phase 4. Of course, I'm going to start off with the first addition to Phase 4, WandaVision. Now, I'm going to give very brief plot synopsis to the first 3 episodes because if you want to see more in detail, just watch the episodes on Disney Plus. And because the main reason I'm doing this video is because I want to give my theories as to what I think is going on in the greater universe and just in general what's happening in WandaVision as we speak. So let's get started. Basically, Wanda and Vision have just gotten married in episode 1, and they moved to a small town called Westview, and yeah, everything seems great. It's styled after like a 1950s, 60s show, kind of like I Love Lucy or Bewitched for the second episode. And yeah, Vision works at a place where he's not really sure what they do there, but he has a big dinner with his boss and his wife to try to impress him to get a promotion. So later on in that day, because the whole running motif of the episode is that Wanda and Vision have something going on that day that they just can't quite remember. So the Hearts come over, that's what the boss and his wife are called, and everything is going great. Everything is, despite all the hiccups that are happening in the kitchen, like Wanda doesn't know how to prepare a meal without using her powers, but that's the whole motif of the show as well. They have to keep the fact that they're superpowered a secret. Yeah, and that's how the first episode pretty much ends. Don't worry, I'll be getting into more details, especially, details like that later on in the portion of the episode. Move on to episode 2, and there is like a town fundraiser talent show type thing for the school, for the children, because that is uttered about 50 times throughout the episode. And Wanda and Vision are going to do a magic act, not a Scarlet Witch Vision type magic act, but like one of those campy, I'll now make my assistant disappear type magic act. Using a big box and cabinet. So there's that, and Vision wants to make sure that the security in the town is up to snuff after what they thought were a bunch of hooligans, attacking their window the previous night, which turned out just to be a tree branch. He wants to make sure the security is up to snuff, and he goes to the neighborhood watch, which really isn't a neighborhood watch. They don't even talk anything about safety or security of the town. They want to talk gossip the entire time. In the process, Vision accidentally swallows a piece of gum, and I guess since Vision is a machine, it gets gummed up in some of his gears, causing Vision to become drunk. Well, as drunk as an artificial intelligence can be. Excuse me. So he shows up late to the act and starts to do things that Vision really shouldn't be doing. Like he starts levitating, he phases a hat through himself, he lifts a piano with one hand. And Wanda kind of has to cover up everything by, showing that there's a wire tied to Vision, or the piano is actually, 2D, but it's got a 3D feel. All this, it's a hilarious scene. It's a really hilarious scene. We're also introduced to a character named Geraldine in this episode, but I'll get to her when we get to episode 3. So after the magic act, they realize that they're going to fit in after all, and Wanda becomes pregnant. And that's really how the episode ends. I know it's not the real ending, but again, I'll talk about that later. Finally, in episode 3, the world is now in color, because the first 2 episodes it was black and white. And now we're mimicking more of a 70s show, kind of like the Brady Bunch. And Wanda is 5 months pregnant after what Vision says to be only 12 hours. So the pregnancy process is rapidly moving forward with Wanda. And the doctor is under the assumption that she's 5 months when she's really 12 hours. And so yeah, finally later on in the episode, it's time for the baby to come after 15 hours. And Geraldine comes just in the nick of time to get a bucket because as Wanda's having some contractions, she causes everything to go out of whack. Lights are flashing, anything that's electric, again, is working on its own. Paintings are spinning, which causes the entire block to have a power outage. Finally, the baby is born, but it turns out there's a second one, so they have twins. And, this is the episode where things start to get very strange. It ends with Geraldine seemingly kicked out of reality, but we don't know how. But now that's when I come in, and I want to just give my thoughts and my theories as to what I think is going on in this show. So, first of all, I'm under the assumption that Wanda is in control of this reality, because why else wouldn't she be? You know, this is tailored to her to have the reality that she's always wanted. The recurring symbol throughout the show is the sword symbol, which I'll put what that means right here, because I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a frequent symbol. We've seen it in the first episode. A guy closes a notebook. We see it on the wall. We see it on a toy helicopter in episode 2. Geraldine is wearing that on her as a necklace in episode 3. So we see it all over the place. So maybe Wanda went to Sword because they're able to create these realities, and Wanda's just behind it all. But that would only explain why, like in episode 2. So without those like cryptic things I was talking about for the episodes, like when I'll get to that later. In every episode, time seems to come to a halt, and something mysterious or creepy happens that's like, what the hell's going on? In episode 1, it's when the Hearts are eating dinner, and they're asking them all about like their past. Like, where'd you guys come from? Why did you guys get married? You know, how long have you been married? How long have you lived in your previous place? And where'd you come from? And as they're asking that, Wanda and Vision just can't answer that. Mr. Hart gets more and more frustrated, and he starts to choke. And the wife just thinks he's just playing around, so she just keeps saying, "Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop." It just gets more sinister and sinister and sinister. Finally, Wanda's like, "Vision, help him." And that snaps everything back. It's as if nothing happened. The Hart's like, "Oh, well, we gotta go. This was a lovely night." As if, again, literally nothing happened. In episode 2, it's when Wanda's talking with Dottie. And Dottie is like the most influential person in this town. Agnes, another character in the show, literally says, you know, if you're getting good graces with Dottie, you're pretty much set here in this town. Because, you know, episode 2 is all about Vision and Wanda fitting into this new town. And so Dottie is like, "I don't trust you and your husband, and I don't think you're not here to cause harm." Because Wanda's like, "I assure you, we mean nobody any harm." She's like, "I don't believe you. Who are you? Who are you?" At the same time, the radio that's playing music cuts out, and we just hear a voice saying, "Wanda, who's doing this to you, Wanda? Who's doing this to you?" And Geraldine breaks a cup and is bleeding, which that's a big motif too. The color red is always prominent. Now, that could just be because Vision is yellow and red, and they just wanted to emphasize that, because the helicopter is red, Geraldine's hand is red when she's bleeding, and then, so yeah, and again, nothing happened after that. After Wanda tries to help her clean up the wound, it's as if nothing happened. It's as if she just accidentally broke a cup in her hand. And finally, at the end of that episode, what I was talking about, they hear a crash at the window, and Vision thinks it's the branch again, but finally they go outside, and the sewer grate opens up, and a man in a beekeeper suit with the sword logo on his back comes out, and Wanda literally just says no, and rewinds reality back to before they heard that noise, as if, again, it never happened. So that leads me to believe that Wanda's in control of all this, but why does she keep resetting reality? I think it's so that this reality's Vision doesn't know that he is in a simulation. Because as we all know, Vision is canonically dead in the Marvel Cinematic Universe after Infinity War. So that can't mean that Vision's alive. This has to be, again, a simulated Vision. And it seems as though whenever something out of the ordinary happens where Vision starts to catch on about some things, Wanda snaps it back. Like in episode 3. Vision starts to be like, it is very strange, you know. He starts to really question a lot of the things that are going on in terms of people discovering that they're superpowered. And it's as if you're like watching an old VHS tape and it skips. And it's right back to the scene before it and nothing happened. Finally, the big moment in this episode is when Wanda brings up the fact that she was a twin. Thus name-dropping Pietro, who has seemingly been a dead character, both literally and figuratively, in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, and is finally brought up again after all these years, after Age of Ultron, because what was that? 6 years ago. In our time. And so Geraldine's finally like, "Pietro, he was killed by Ultron, wasn't he?" This is when it gets super sinister, and Wanda seemingly, again, throws Geraldine out of this reality back into the real world, where she's surrounded by armored vehicles, presumably sword vehicles. I almost said shield. Presumably sword vehicles. And that's how the episode ends. But I don't know what Geraldine's role is. Well, obviously, again, that's not Geraldine. If you have been following along with the casting of WandaVision, you know that that's not Geraldine. That's Monica Rambeau. Yes, the little girl from Captain Marvel. So does she work for Sword? Was she roped into the sword experiment for some reason? I don't know what Monica Rambeau's greater role is in the show, so I'm very excited to explore that aspect of it. Another theory is that the voice that's saying Wanda, who's doing this to you, is actually Jimmy Woo, Agent Woo from Ant-Man and the Wasp. The guy who's constantly keeping tabs on Scott to make sure he doesn't break house arrest. So that's another interesting theory as well. But how is this going to impact the greater Marvel Cinematic Universe? We already know that this ties directly into Doctor Strange 2, which in turn ties directly into Spider-Man 3. So it seems like the multiverse is going to be a big trend going on throughout Phase 4. Another really fun tidbit is that the twins, Tommy and Billy, because a whole joke throughout Episode 3 is that Wanda and Vision are arguing about what they want to name their son. Vision wants to name him Billy after William Shakespeare, and Wanda wants to name him Tommy because that's just a nice all-American name. So when they have twins, they decide to name them Tommy and Billy, who actually turn out to be Wiccan and Speed, two young Avengers. This happens when Wanda uses a piece of Mephisto to create these babies, because obviously Vision can't procreate because he's a program. He's artificial intelligence, I should say. So that leads me to believe that a Young Avengers movie is definitely on the horizon, because we already have Kate Bishop. Cassie Lang is Stature in the comics, and she's a Young Avenger, so that leaves Wiccan and Speed, who are also Young Avengers, so I think it's safe to say that a Young Avengers movie is coming. But how do those two fit in? Because if they are part of this fake reality, how do they get brought into the real world? Do they get tossed out like Geraldine does? Do they? It's just so trippy. I will warn you that if you don't like setup or build up, I'd recommend waiting for all 6 episodes to drop on Disney Plus instead of waiting weekly like I am. That way you can get your money's worth. But for those of you who like to just really let details soak in, and I've watched the first 3 episodes 2 to 3 times now, just because I want to watch every scene and just see if I'm missing anything that could lead me to what the heck's going on, because it's very tough to tell what's happening in the first 2 episodes. Except for those random moments of just sinister tone. But it's super exciting, and WandaVision comes out again this Friday as this video is recorded, and I cannot wait. But at the end of the day, I can't give a rating to the show just yet. I'll give my final verdict for the show once episode 6 drops, and I'm able to really sink in and delve into all the lore and all the hidden bits and details that we might have missed or see in the show that might lead to a greater universe. No, I don't know why I'm saying might. It will lead to the overall universe. And it's really cool now that these TV shows are crossing over with the movies, because with the Daredevil shows that are canon to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they never felt like they were. These will actually start feeling like it because there's going to be crossover characters. And that's really cool. Oh yeah, and one more quick thing before I go. If you are watching the show, there are bumpers that hit throughout the episode, and if you don't know what a bumper is, it's basically like a commercial, like on the radio. It's like, thank you for listening to KRUD, and all that fun, that stuff. So there's bumpers that hit in the middle of the episodes, and I'm having a hard time figuring out if they actually mean something or if they're just clever nods, because each one of them has something to do directly with Wanda. In the first episode, it's a toaster made by Stark Industries, and we all know that Wanda wanted Stark gone after a weapon of his killed her parents in Age of Ultron. The second one is a watch by Strucker brand watches, and obviously Strucker gave her powers. And finally, Hydra brand soap, which again, Strucker was part of Hydra, and that directly gave her powers. So I'm trying to think if they're not just clever nods, subtle references to Wanda, or if they have a deeper meaning than you might think. Only time will tell, I guess, but pay close attention because they're actually really funny. I'm really happy that they took this tone too. I mean, it's a really creative tone. How you could easily just do a utopia for Wanda for what she wants this reality, the reality she can never have to be. But I like how they kind of mimicked shows like Bewitched and I Love Lucy and now Brady Bunch, to a T, by the way, to a T. Especially if you grew up in that generation, it's distinctly noticeable when they start parodying said shows. Really a treat. Yeah, that's really all I have to say about it right now. So those are my theories. I so let's just recap. I personally think that Wanda's responsible for the whole reality. She's working with Sword. And I'm also on the fence about that because part of me also thinks that Sword is responsible for the realities, but I can't tell who. So it's these two parties that I'm not sure who's controlling it, whether it be Wanda or Sword. So we'll have to find out. I think Wanda's trying to prevent this reality's Vision from finding out he's a simulation. And I don't know what Monica Rambeau's part is. Or Geraldine at this point. I don't know what part that is. But do yourself a favor. If you are a huge Marvel Cinematic Universe fan, definitely check out the show. Because it is a completely different tone shift from what we're used to in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's got the same humor, you know, with the fact that it's parodying these shows perfectly. But it's also, again, got a real sinister edge to it that might make you look twice and make you want to rewatch the episodes, because I don't recommend watching it just once if you're a big fan. If you're a big fan of the first episode and you just want to see how it goes, watch it multiple times, because you'll really be able to, you won't have to pay attention to the plot as much. Like like me. I was able to, you know, analyze the background, see if I can find anything else, and not really have to focus on, you know, the greater plot. So that's my advice to anybody who wants to watch WandaVision. But I think I've rambled on long enough. Make sure you guys stay tuned for this exact same week. Yes, 2 videos in a week. I'm really happy that I could start doing that, where I will do Chapter 3 of the Star Wars Chronicle. I'm actually going to be filming that shortly after this, after I finish editing this and getting this out. Yeah, so I hope you guys are excited for that. Make sure you guys like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what guys, let me guys know. Remember, I cannot speak. Let me know what you guys thought of WandaVision down in the comments below. And yeah, until then, guys, that is a wrap.